Hello, my name is Luby, and welcome back to Katawa Shoujo. Last time we, uh, last time we did things. We definitely, we did things. Yeah. um, let's just keep going. After a chaotic dash to the station, finding our seats in the otherwise deserted carriage, we promptly crashed. Looking at the time, close to midnight, it's a little surprised that few take this particular train. Hanako is fast asleep on Lily's shoulder, and I can only barely muster the energy to stay awake. The excitement we had a while ago probably didn't help. The excitement, yeah. I'd probably be pretty depressed about going back to school if my brain was actually working. As it is, though, the sight of the nighttime scenery scrolling by is surprisingly beautiful. My loud yawn is nearly wholly drowned out by the clacking of the train tracks and the old carriages rattling. So tired. And whose fault is that, Miss Al? She really does toe the line between insulting and amusing sometimes, though I manage to wring out a wary smile. I look back out the window, my reflection just visible in the clear pane. Truth be told, she's perfectly correct. If it weren't for that little interlude a few hours ago, both of us would have a lot more energy. On top of that, we both had to take another bath, very nearly making us late for the train's departure. Yeah, it was mine. Still, getting into a bath with a guy is a dangerous thing to do. Evidently. Sorry, I guess I kind of took advantage of the situation back there. Well, I... oh my god. Well, I didn't exactly hate it. As she trails off, I look back to her. My eyes narrow as I see her slightly reddened cheeks and small grin. Her mind obviously somewhere else. Say it. I knew the possibility of it happening was there. I knew it. You're just as dirty-minded as I am. She quickly coughs into her free hand, making her disapproval crystal clear. That's a rather crude way of putting it. Oh, and you would suggest? I merely have a healthy adolescent sex drive. So, in other words, dirty-minded. Almost seeming to sense the moment, Hanako mumbles quietly as she furrows her brow in Lily's lap. Lily's look of disapproval melts away as she gently smiles and strokes her hand on Hanako's long, dark hair. All I can do is watch and smile. If someone were to ask me when I fell in love with her, I wouldn't be able to answer. The best I'd be able to come up with is it just happened at some point, but I didn't realize it. If someone were to ask me why I love her, though, then I could answer much more easily. You really love Hanako, don't you? She gives a deep nod, smiling warmly. It's a pity we have to return to school. She seemed to relax so much while we were all away. No, don't keep talking about Hanako. I wouldn't worry. Hanako's been gaining confidence thanks to you, at least for as long as I've known you two. She gives a self-deprecating sigh. I think I merely provided her with company and support. Since she came to know you, she's opened up much more, even to me. I get the feeling she's understating her influence on Hanako, especially given that before the two came to know each other, Hanako had no friends to speak of. The friends I'd had in my previous school fulfilled what I had expected of them, for the most part simply being there for idle chatter. But in Hanako and Lily, there really feels to be more to the relationship. A part of me envies it, but another can't ignore the fact the school year will eventually end. After graduation, I really have no idea what Hanako will do. This trip has shown me just how much we've all come to depend on one another. Indeed, we're all gonna have to make decisions. Maybe that's the reason why, despite a return to school also heralding a return to the normalcy of everyday life, I can't help feeling a little restless. On the bright side, it won't take long for the summer holidays to arrive after exams are finished. We could come back here during the summer holidays if you want. For a moment, she thinks of the notion, her face becoming somewhat distant. I can only guess she's reflecting on all that's happened here. That would be good, I think. I nod approvingly, smiling at her. Summer, together with Lily. The idea seems like the perfect way to spend our holiday. Act transition. Act 4. Future. So it's been past, present, and future. So, forgive me if I'm wrong. This seems like the final act. I mean, past, present, future, you know? But, some little part of me is hoping, man, I don't want this to be the last act. Man, this game is so enjoyable. After the excitement of our trip to Hokkaido, it seems strange to be right back to the usual daily routine so soon. Indeed, it feels like a normal day, the same as any other. Well, that's what I like to think, anyway. To tell the truth, the atmosphere of the entire class, no, the entire school has changed. While an undercurrent of subdued trepidation had previously pervaded the class, now that the exams are in sight, it's boiled over into frantic studying, rarely seen otherwise. One day until exams start. It's horrific, really, that instead of studying, we went and wasted our time up north. We were such model students, too. Glancing around the class, even the bubbly, ever-energetic Misha seems oddly deflated. She sits at her desk, nervously chewing a pen while Muto lectures from the front of the class. Wait, on closer inspection, I do believe she's eating it! Tearing my eyes from the sorry spectacle, I turn my attention elsewhere. Hanako sits frantically scribbling in her notebook, her face mere inches away from the page, seemingly trying to record every word that leaves Muto's mouth. Shizune is, well, Shizune. Cool as a cucumber, she sits diligently taking notes with her attention wholly focused on the front of the class. Truth be told, it's what I should be doing as well, if not for the fact that I feel like I have a pretty good handle on what's being covered already. I wonder how Lily's doing. While she does have a good head on her, she has plenty on her plate, unlike me. Her class representative duties, taking care of Hanako, her other social contacts, her extra English studies, that girl really does take on a lot. The lunchtime bell brings a sigh of relief from the entire class, Muto being no exception. I get the feeling he much prefers the more laid-back atmosphere of his normal classes to the frantic pace of exam preparation we're subjected to right now. Hee-chan! Help me! I lower my eyelids to half-mast, making clear my intention of doing quite the opposite. Help me, help me, help me! Not going well? Shishan's gonna be fine, but I think I might die. Am I gonna die, Hee-chan? Will you let me die from all this work? How maudlin. Given that she's neither the brightest student in the class nor the most diligent, it isn't a great surprise that she's finding it hard to cope with the workload. Sorry, Misha, but I've got my own work to do. I thought you and Shizune would be studying together over the long weekend anyway. Studying's too boring to miss a holiday on, Hee-chan. Shopping together was much more fun, wasn't it, Shishan? It's only now that I realize Shizune has been looking over to us and that Misha's arms have been moving lightly all this time. I must be really zoned out to not have noticed. What is it with girls and shopping anyway? Even Lily and Hanako have dragged me out with them a couple of times. But you went anyway? It's so rare to see a guy that likes going shopping. Well, my role would probably be best described as pack mule. I can't say I share your enthusiasm about the experience. Back to the exams, though. You studied after you got back from the days off, didn't you, Shizune? ... Of course, Shishan! It's only sensible to study in the days before... Misha makes a sound vaguely similar to a dying cow as she realizes her folly and unceremoniously flops into her desk, betrayed even by her best friend. Judging from Shizune's quite frustrated look at Misha, she probably told her to study as she did. Don't worry, you can still gain some grades if you start studying now. Maybe. Misha does not seem overly amused. It seems the bubbly balloon of everlasting cheerfulness has been cruelly popped. ... Shizune's signing goes unnoticed by the moping Misha, earning her a quick poke in the shoulder. It takes barely a moment for Misha to get back into form. Oh, and so what did you do over the weekend, Hee-chan? Just took a trip up north with Lily and Hanako. It was pretty nice. Nothing else happened. Nothing else at all. I see both of them narrowing their eyes at me, their minds surely in the gutter. Well, they're not wrong. The fact that their suspicions are founded makes the situation all the more awkward. We just studied and went sightseeing. There's nothing more to it. After such a flagrant lie, I realized that it may not have been the best step, considering Shizune's connections and her total lack of restraint when it comes to questioning someone she suspects of telling untruths. I really have no idea of how she's going to take it, but she'll find out eventually anyway. It isn't as if it's really her business who might date in any case. And yes. Lily and I are going out now. While Misha receives the news with an enthusiastic smile, Shizune gives a look of mild surprise, somewhat masked by her cool demeanor. Dot dot dot. Whoever you date is your business. I mean, you go well together. Misha gives a look that says this is the most quarter I could possibly receive in the matter. It's all I wanted, really. After she says this, though, Shizune begins to sign something else, then stops herself and shakes her head at Misha to prevent her from translating. Normally, I'd think this is strange enough, but the awkwardly casual wave Shizune gives before walking off with Misha in tow adds to my confusion. Shizune is hardly the kind of person to pull a punch or communicate without forethought. I shrug my shoulders at the duo's odd behavior and look towards Hanako's desk, but see that her chair is empty. She was definitely here before, so I guess she just didn't feel like waiting. I'll go grab some food alone then. Ah. Walking down the hallway to the unused room that's become a second home to 3 students in particular, I mournfully look down at the plastic-wrapped salad roll and the juice box in my hand. That cafeteria's food is really unappetizing. Maybe I'll consider this my penance for my recent indiscretions. Opening the door, I notice one less quiet figure than I expected. Hi, Lily. It's strange. Despite having known Lily for months, I can't help thinking back to the very first time I opened this door and saw her silently sitting in the sunlight. Just as she did then, she slowly opens her eyes, unmoving as they are, and calmly addresses me. Good morning, Hisao. It's afternoon, I think. Has Hanako been around? She skittered out of class without me even noticing. Lily cradles her cheek thoughtfully as I take a seat, my bag taking its place against the closest leg of the table, and my unsatisfying meal neatly set out in front of me. She did appear, for a time. She said she had to study for the upcoming exams and left for the library. We find ourselves not entirely believing her words. Well, at least her intentions are in the right place. She is sweet, but she needn't go this far to let us have our space. I might have to talk to her about... Sorry, I keep mispronouncing my words, Hisao. Please forgive me. I might talk to her about it sometime. Probably for the best. For a while, we quietly eat our meals, Lily elegantly nibbling on her sandwiches and sipping her tea as I eat what tastes like a garden sandwiched in dry dough. The atmosphere feels slightly strained, neither of us knowing quite what to say to each other now that our small talk is dried up. Eventually, we both finish our food, with no conversation forthcoming for quite some time. Eventually, though, Lily's soft voice breaks the silence. A lot happened back there, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Again, silence. With both our minds on the same topic, though, I think I have my feelings on that sorted out. I know everything happened in kind of a hurry, but I don't regret anything that happened in Hokkaido. Not one thing. Hisao? Slightly tense, I take her hands in mine. Half to feel her, half to settle my own nerves. I stand by my words back there, Lily. I love you, and I won't leave you. I only wish for you to think the same. She silently reflects for a long time, which feels like an eternity. Her reverie comes to an end as she takes one hand from mine, placing it over them as she leans her body forwards and stands out of her chair. After a moment's hesitation, her face slightly pensive, her lips meet mine for a brief moment. Ah, they kissed, that's cute. My mind feels as if it briefly stopped at that moment, barely registering Lily sitting back in her chair and smiling back at me with ever so slightly reddened cheeks. Hearing that makes me very happy, Hisao. I will be glad to stay with you. Maybe it would be good to slow things down a bit compared to before. We still have school, after all, and our exams. She gives a mischievous giggle which proves to be contagious. A mischievous. That might be a good idea, indeed. Do you think you'll fare well in your exams? It's only one day until they arrive, as you say. I probably should have studied more, but I think I've got a good enough head to manage. That said, I had to bat off Misha and Shizune. Is your class as worried about the exams as mine? She lets out an exasperated sigh, all but confirming it. I'm thankful for the atmosphere becoming a bit lighter. I think so. I've already been asked for help by 2 of my classmates, and there'll no doubt be more. Think of it as your first training in being a teacher, maybe? That's probably a good way to think of it. On that note, how are you faring in your English studies? I remember it was far from your strongest subject, and the few sentences you memorized to speak to my mother aren't likely to help. Damn, right on the mark. You got me. If you don't mind, would you able to possibly help in that regard? Please? It would be my pleasure to help you, Hisao, but in exchange... She lowers her eyebrows at me, her coquettish nature tentatively coming to the fore. No problem at all. You'd probably be better off with some help in your studies, though. She beams a smile at me, one of girlish victory that nearly makes me blush. I get the feeling she's aware of how to use her face to twist my judgment, so I should probably be more on guard. Here and now, though, a study group seems like an expedient way for both of us to shore up our more lacking skills. I'm sorry, I woke up like 20 minutes ago. The school bell rings out, reminding us that time isn't going to stand still. Huh, lunchtime's over already. Sure is easy to lose track of the time here. This room's so far from the other clubs and activities, not much sound can reach us. That's probably most of the reason why. A place far from all the others, alone with just one person whom she loves. As Lily stands and collects her bag and cane, my thoughts are cast back to the time we spent in Hokkaido. Before I go, Akira and I are having a homecoming party in my room tomorrow. Will you be able to come? And back again. My schedule is free, so I should be able to make enough room in my study time to make it. Good to hear, Hisao. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're back from Scotland. Once exams are over, we should have some more time to ourselves. Holidays start soon after, too. We can start the holidays with Tanabata then, just as we promised at the school festival. She brings her hand to her cheek and laughs slightly nervously, recalling the event as I silently thank myself for managing to remember. It seems odd to see her react in such a way, though. It's not like I never saw her embarrassed before. I'd better be going. Farewell, Hisao. Whether it's out of habit or just a stubborn desire for one small fragment of normality, I hold my hand up in farewell just as I always do. At least I'm consciously aware that I'm doing it now. I think I'm beginning to see a bigger picture than I ever have before, not only with Lily, but also my life ahead. The chains of my past are finally breaking. Yeah, okay. Walking up the now slightly more familiar corridor of the girls' dormitories, I can hear the faint sound of laughter coming from up ahead. By the way, I wonder if those two scenes we got last episode are the only scenes like that throughout the entire story now. Are we past that now? Are we gonna get another scene like that, or are we past that? It doesn't take long to identify the source as Lily's room. The deep timbre of the female voice unmistakably belongs not to her, but to her sister. I rap my knuckles on the door with the usual 3 light taps, my hand barely retreating as the door swings open. Hey, Hisao! Hey, hello Lily. Hanako? Hanako looks up tentatively, her hands buried in her oversized pink nightgown. From her side, Lily turns sideways toward the direction of my voice and smiles. It would be a flagrant. I keep misreading flagrant as fragrant for some reason. It would be a flagrant lie to say I dislike the sight of her in those pajamas. I catch Akira giving me a sidelong look with a knowing grin, to which I reply with a sharp glare. She takes the hint, shrugs, and walks back to the low table in the center of the room. As I go to join her, Lily gives me a nod of greeting and starts pouring me a cup of tea. It's nice to see you again, Hanako. You've been getting around recently. Oh, I accidentally muted the game by pressing the M button. I didn't know you could do that. Lily wears a look of concentration as a light brown liquid, carefully measured by her finger as always, flows from the teapot into the cup. It seems Hanako has taken up helping one of the people in your class with the newspaper club. Naomi, I think. Hanako gives an affirmative nod. Even after spending about 2 months in the class, I still have trouble remembering the names of those students I rarely talk with. It takes me a few mental contortions to connect the name with the face, but I eventually remember the girl that sits beside Hanako at the back of the class. Naomi Inoue, a fairly average-looking girl except for her bleached blonde hair. Given her upbeat and straightforward personality, Naomi may have seen an opening to poach Hanako for her club when she inquired about joining one. Have we seen this Naomi character before? I don't think we have. Either way, it's nice to see Hanako broadening her horizons. When I first met her, the idea of her joining a club with anyone but Lily would have seemed utterly laughable. That explains how busy you've been. Enjoying it?
It's really interesting.
As always, Haneko's far from being talkative. Some things never change, and it seems that Haneko's personality is one of them. She'll likely always be one to shy away from being overly social. Warned by the sound of crockery against the table as Lily gently places my drink in front of me, I thank her and take a long sip. Hanako and Lily are tending to their own, and Akira is quaffing a mug of strong-smelling black coffee. You're a lucky bastard, Hisao. Huh? I can't help grimacing at her teasing smile, still visible around the edges of the mug pressed to her lips. Okay, yeah, sure, whatever, man. Seeing my sister in her pajamas, there's a lot of men out there who'd like to be where you are. I've seen a lot more than that of her, not that I'd admit it.
Akira!
Hey, I'm just teasing. She leans over to me as much as she can, whispering with a sly grin written on her face. And Hanako, too, you perv. Hey, it was her idea. We both look over to her face turned to the ground, and her hands fidgeting in the lap of her nightgown. Okay, yeah, whatever.
If it's Hisao, I don't mind.
This could be bad. I know Haneko's altogether too innocent to bother reading too much into such a thing, but the expression Akira directs at me is positively stormy.
Akira, please.
It seems Lily can sense Akira's sudden change in aura just as well as I, even without seeing it for herself. Akira slowly looks away from me, like an attack dog leashed by its owner in the nick of time. I breathe a sigh of relief. I can't think of a more appropriate time to try and change topics than around now. If you don't mind me asking, Akira, what do you do for a living? I've never seen you out of that suit. Thinking about what to do with yourself after school's over, eh? I'm a lawyer. For the most part, I work in the legal department of the Japanese branch of our family's company. The most boring possible answer, I suppose. Law's a pretty dry topic to most people. Akira Sato, ace attorney. Kinda. Oi, you're not supposed to agree. Lily gives an amused giggle while holding her teacup and saucer, Hanako quickly joining her. This friendly atmosphere between everyone is something I'd missed while Lily and Akira were on their trip. While the dealings I had with Hanako didn't help, I think just not having Lily around changed the mood.
It's nice to be back. I missed you, Hisao, and you too, Hanako.
Same goes for the both of us. I'm guessing your classmates are happy to see you back?
In a manner of speaking, yes.
Akira's amused snort shows how she's well aware of Lily's attitude towards such figures of speech. I imagine she'd have to be, given how long they've been together.
Did you have fun in Scotland?
For a moment I wonder why she's asking, it having been quite a while since they came back, but then I remember everything that's happened. We've simply not had time to look back, what with the exams and our Hokkaido trip. Uh-oh. Yeah, the music got quieter, but I didn't want to point it out. Something tells me things didn't go incredible. Lily's face goes distant for a moment, and the fact that Akira's first reaction is to look over to her sister doesn't escape me. Nonetheless, she quickly collects herself.
It was nice. We hadn't met our family in such a long time, so it was a wonderful reunion.
Yeah, I guess it's right. Their house being beachside was the best part, though. From her dismissive tone, I get the feeling Akira doesn't like their family as much as Lily does.
You only liked that because you finally had time to play around.
Just 'cause I'm the better swimmer.
I don't take after the athletic side of the family, that's all.
Well, you can take heart in the fact that you got the height genes, at least. And the bust genes.
That's not really the right kind of thing to say around others.
Though Lily pretends to scold Akira, she does so with an unmistakable, slightly cheeky grin on her face. Right there. I doubt Akira really minds that, judging from her nonchalant expression. While I don't either, Hanako's looking down and blushing furiously beside me. The sisters' antics aside, their parents really do lead a bourgeoisie lifestyle. A bourgeoise? It seems utterly divorced from the life that Lily and Akira have lived until now. I suppose practicality must have made the decision for them. To have come from such a wealthy and well-connected lineage only adds to the almost noble air Lily seems to have, though. It's a small wonder none of it seems to have rubbed off into Akira. They really are as little alike as siblings could be. Their only similarity seems to be their shared confidence, which can be both endearing and a headache at times. Most of the night continues much the same, with Hanako eventually leaving the Sato sisters and me to ourselves as she heads back to her dorm room for a rest. For a while, only the barely audible sound from Lily's teacup and saucer can occasionally be heard as she slowly drinks. There's a lot of long sentences in this game, and I have to breathe after them. The silence is strained as Lily and I wait for the elephant in the room to be addressed. So, Lily dutifully puts her cup down, giving her sister her undivided attention. With Lily and me on one side of the low table and Akira at the other, this almost feels like a judge passing down a verdict. I hear that you two are going out now? I glance sideways at Lily to confirm her as the source of Akira's knowledge. She gives a gentle nod to Akira, which I mirror in affirmation. Deciding that this is the proper time and place to do so, and Akira being the closest figure to a parent Lily's had for much of her life, I bow deeply with my hands on the floor before me and my head very nearly the same. I'll take good care of your sister, Akira. I promise you.
See? He's a lovely young gentleman.
She must have heard my voice coming from a lower position than usual. I slowly bring myself back up, my eyes tentatively looking to Akira from under my brow. To tell the truth, I very much doubt my suited judge will raise any objections. She's very definitely the type to make her disapproval with others well known, something that lends her a measure of respect in my eyes. The old-fashioned kind, huh? Well, he's the kind of person I'd guess you'd go for. I don't have a problem with it, and I wish you two the best. Even if I didn't like it, I couldn't really do anything anyway. I offer a nod of appreciation to her as Lily gives a small sigh of relief, likely more out of duty than any actual belief Akira might have had, and with any problems of us being together. I butchered that last part so bad. I do wonder, though, how's the rest of the family taking it, particularly the part residing in Yamaku? Have you told her? Smiles turn to grimaces as Akira grins downright evilly. Those closest know how to twist a knife best, after all.
Putting up with it may be the best term for the situation. Don't you agree, Hisao?
Yeah, that sounds about right. At least she's being reasonable about it. Good to hear. That girl can be a handful at the best of times. We sent a few messages back and forth during and just after the trip, and she was already busting my chops for seeing my boyfriend when we came back, after leaving Hideaki for so long. She really does care for the little guy. I cast my mind back to Shizune's odd reaction after telling her about our relationship, but decide not to bring it up. It's no doubt simply born of their mutual antipathy, and Akira's comments only back that up. Well then, that's settled. Gotta get to work early tomorrow, so I better be off. Wait, please don't leave us alone in the room. Please, I don't want to be a professional sexy narrator again. Please, don't do this to me. She rises from the table with a grunt, her hand on her knee to push herself up. I just notice Akira's eyes lingering on Lily for a couple of seconds before turning away as she begins to take her leave. After she walks out the door, she stops and looks up thoughtfully before returning to us one last time. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to tell you. Use protection! Every time! I gag violently in the tea in my mouth. Contrary to my own, Lily's composure holds perfectly as she seems entirely unfazed. I'm kind of impressed.
We are, don't worry.
Atta girl! See us. Although I don't remember a scene where we used protection last time. And with that, she turns and strides away, a hand held high as she disappears into the darkened hallway, closing the door behind her. The most reaction I can muster is flopping forwards onto the table, completely drained of energy and truly exhausted by her. Lily's ability to hold her own against that suited devil is something I admire. She really is incredibly blunt. I don't think I'll ever be able to keep up with your sister's energy. As I feel Lily's soft hand come to rest on my own, I roll my head to the side to see her gently smiling. For a long time, we simply sit beside each other silently. Given her unquestionably unusual height, she is pretty much exactly as tall as I am. Probably a couple of centimeters higher, if anything. Like this, she appears even taller. The feeling of her pale, soft hand against mine is a pleasant one, as is the sight of the thin silken pajamas she wears, showing her... Really? Hisao, this is the second time you've mentioned that those pajamas bring out her curves. Do you have to say it every time? Showing her curves and collarbone.
You do get on well, though, even if you do say that.
I guess. You know, you two are a lot more alike than when I first... You two are a lot more alike than I first thought when I met you.
Then it's a good thing I quickly stopped you from going after her, isn't it?
Though she jokes about it, my assessment of my inability to keep up with Kira, either physically or mentally, was quite in earnest. Lily's slow pace and ladylike, almost motherly nature is perhaps the single thing that helped me most in my first weeks at Yamaku. Come to think of it. Wait! Since when were we using protection? Right, that's what I said! As I give a curious look to my side, Lily's cheeks puff out as she huffs at me.
Unlike you, I remembered. The packet is in the cupboard next to the sink.
So I'm not the only one of us that takes a pill. I feel rather thoughtless for not remembering at all and leaving it to Lily. Looking over to the cupboard she mentions, I notice again the knee-high piles of books around us that were here the other times I'd visited. For the most part, they're lined up against the wall to give a little more room around the table. Why don't you get a bookshelf for your books? It's odd to see books just piled around, especially given that your room looks so neat and orderly otherwise.
They're easier to find this way. I know exactly which pile each book is in.
Wouldn't you still know that after putting each set on a different shelf?
That may be, but
She's not immune to bouts of laziness after all. You have so many of them, it's kind of a shame we can't share our book sets despite both of us reading so much. She gives a short giggle. Come to think of it, why do you order your books through Yuko? I imagine there'd be plenty of sites you could order books in Braille from, especially in English Braille. There are a lot of text-to-speech programs, too. She turns her head slightly away from me, which strikes me as somewhat surprising.
I'm just not all that good with computers. I'm alright with typewriters and braillers, but that's about it.
Her tone also almost makes me chuckle. She's a prideful person, so admitting something like that must be difficult. So Lily's the low-tech kind of person. Given her old-fashioned personality, it's not really a stunning surprise. I wouldn't worry about it. A lot of people aren't really that good with them, so it's not that unusual.
That unusual.
Now she's even more depressed. It's like I'm twisting the knife rather than healing her wounds. With a bit of squirming, I shuffle my way closer to her, tentatively putting one hand around her waist to hug her. I'm still not really used to this kind of physical affection, but Lily seems to like it. Oh my god! Cute. Lily smiles as she turns to face me, a kiss being the reward for giving in to her. She draws me in, brushing my upper lip with hers before pressing against both. This way, every one of my senses is filled with her. The barely perceptible scent of her hair, her taste as her tongue fleetingly touches mine, the tenderness of her lips, the image of her filling my mind, the total silence apart from her faint breath. We may have kissed before, but even if this is more a kiss of simple affection than anything, it's still a new and pleasant sensation. Ahem, I have to read that. Okay. Judging from her vivid blush as she pulls back, it's obvious she feels the same as I do. Even if we're entirely alone, it still feels a little embarrassing to open up to each other this much.
If we take everything day by day, I think that'll be for the best. Small steps, right?
Yeah, just small steps. We have plenty of time to be together, even after the school year is over. As long as we move together, I think everything will work out okay. Neither of us is going anywhere soon, after all. For now, I'm just thankful for this small moment in time we can spend together. That kiss was very cute. Very cute. I love this game so much. It's so cute, man. Anyway, I've run out of time to record, but thanks to the use of some magic, I will record again tomorrow, right? I'm going to record again tomorrow. But that footage is going to be edited to this video. Isn't that wild? Doesn't that just feel like magic? Watch, watch. Okay, so I'm going to time travel to tomorrow really quick, and I'll be right back in 3, 2, 1. Whoa, holy crap, I'm back! I have no idea how I did that. Anyway, let's keep going. I stand unmoving in front of the door to the nurse's office where it feels like at least a dozen minutes or so. It's not like I never entered this small beige room before, nor is it because of any feeling of childlike anxiety over the visit. Maybe it's because the nurse's office is akin to a confessional, an admission that my body is flawed. The knowledge that such a fact is kept entirely confidential between the nurse and me hardly lessens the feeling. Remembering that the bell to signal the end of lunch break will sound soon, I give a sigh and open the door. The burden will stay with me just this while longer. Well now, if it isn't Nakai, good to see ya. Or bad, I guess, considering I'm a nurse. He gives a small laugh, amused at his little joke. I find his humor lacking and somewhat off, but the fact that he can make light of such a situation is perhaps comforting, or at least distracting. His brief episode of entertainment over, he claps his hands together and gets down to business. I take a seat as he gestures for me to do so. I wish the classrooms had seats this comfortable. I can feel my mind wandering as my eyes quickly scan the room, distracted by all the small changes since I last came. Alrighty, so what brings you here? I haven't seen you often, so I assume your health's been good so far? Well, mostly. I see. His smile drops as I trail off. I feel slightly guilty about it. It's these moments where I can't rationally call myself normal that make me so reluctant to see the nurse. They're an admission that I'm different from everyone else. While I was on a trip during the long weekend, I had a few problems with my heart. He hums very seriously and nods as he does so, urging me to go on. I think it was as I was walking a fairly long distance. I think the right term for it is a heart flutter. I suddenly went weak at the knees and felt almost like I was having a small heart attack, but it passed in about half a minute. Even afterward, though, I felt pretty fatigued and nauseous. Not good. Not good at all. That was how many days ago exactly? Did you do anything unusual aside from exerting yourself before the episode? Were you taking your medication properly? No, we were not. The nurse switches from awkward jokester to serious health professional mode, rattling off questions, making notes, and calling up stuff in his computer. Very good. I tell him about my forgetting to take my pills that morning and the preceding evening. It was a stupid thing to do, but I can't change anything about it now, except answer honestly and bite the bullet. His seriousness evolves into a frown, and the talk evolves into an instant checkup. I finish buttoning up my shirt and again get motioned to take a seat in front of the nurse. This is the first heart problem you've had since coming to Yamaku. I've had short pains in my chest before, just a couple of times, but they're more discomfort than anything like this. He leans back in his chair, briefly resembling a white-coated Poirot, I don't know who that is, as he mulls over the mysterious case of the heart flutter. Moving his lips from side to side to show he's thinking, his non-existent mustache wiggling, he eventually comes to a conclusion. Well, he survived it. That's always on the plus side. I blink at this one, then notice a nurse wearing his got you face. It's actually somewhat reassuring. I don't think he would crack jokes if things were really serious, so I keep silent and take my lumps. I'll have a talk with your doctor, but right now I suspect it's simply due to physical exertion. Have you been keeping up with regular light exercise like I directed you to? Make sure to walk a reasonable amount every day. It's usually enough to work up a bit of sweat, but then again, I'm not really as fit as I used to be. That should be enough then. The main thing to keep in mind is to do regular low-stress exercise, not short bursts of sprinting and such. I understand. Since leaving the hospital, I've been a lot more focused on my studies, partly to take my mind off not being able to do more physical things. It's good to hear you're coping well. Sudden lifestyle changes can be hard at the best of times, so I'm pleased to hear that you sound like you have everything in order. Almost everything, that is. Nevertheless, I want to keep a close eye on you for a while, just for observation's sake. Just to make sure things aren't going downhill, you understand? That's something I really didn't want to hear. Since coming to Yamaku, all I've wanted to do is live a life as normal as possible. Observation was one of the words I came to hate most during my hospital stay. For so long, I felt as if I could have just walked straight out of the hospital doors, if not for that observation the doctors wanted so dearly. Sure, should I come in more often? He checks the calendar next to his computer, which seems to inflict on him a nasty case of furrowed brow. He spins back towards me after that. The summer holidays are a bit of a pain, considering the timing. I'll check with your doctor to try and get a better handle on the situation and see how he wants to proceed, but I think you just take things slowly and carefully for now. What you're describing doesn't immediately sound like a recurring event, but it won't hurt to slow down a bit for a while. Just make sure. What should I do for today? He looks over my shoulder at a clock hanging over the door. I'd never have noticed it if I hadn't followed his gaze. It's nearly time for school to be over, so you may as well just leave early. He gives me a sly wink, making sure that I understand he's doing me a favor. Well, nurse's orders. Thanks. That's what I'm here for, after all. I know you might not want to hear this, but you can't ignore your condition. Don't hesitate to ask me if you have any further problems, or if you just have anything you want to ask. Bye. He spins around and gets back to typing on the computer in front of him. I suppose I'll just read before waiting for Lily by the gate, considering I don't have much else to do. Even as I leave, his words echo in my mind. My condition isn't something as limiting as many of the others here in Yamaku, and I don't want to burden Lily with thinking about it. If I just live life normally and avoid any short, sharp shocks, I should be okay. I won't let my condition rule me. Lily comes into view soon after the bells heralding the end of the school day ring out. She says farewell to a number of her classmates headed in the other direction before beginning her weekly trip to the convenience store. Afternoon, Lily. The immediate warm smile and relaxed demeanor she assumes upon noticing my presence are unexpectedly welcome.
Hello, Hisao. Good afternoon to you, too.
She hesitates for a second, but eventually deigns to tilt her face forward and close her eyes. Ah! My lips meet hers with a measure of slight trepidation before we move off, hand in hand. That's cute. That's cute. They're finally acting more like a couple. That is amazing. The fact that we're so close in height is somewhat useful at times, there being no need for either of us to turn our head upwards nor downwards in order to meet the others. It doesn't take much time to leave the noise of the other students far behind us, the tapping of Lily's cane in her free hand the only sound to be heard. Silence, blissful silence, is all that greets us while we slowly walk in the setting sun's light. I think I'm coming to really like this town. The huge, green, hilly expanse, the trees everywhere, the somewhat rustic little buildings.
So you've come to appreciate the tranquility of it as well?
I think so. I came from a metropolitan city near Tokyo, so the quiet of this town really alienated me when I first arrived. After a while, it became really nice, though. I think I prefer to the hustle and bustle of my home city now.
Well, I prefer the quiet of such a rural town even when I first arrived. I suppose I had the advantage of growing up in a quiet area before I came. Hanako said the surroundings are very pretty too.
Lily may say such a thing quite easily, but each time she mentions how others describe sights around her as beautiful or pretty, I feel a little put off. I notice her expression becoming one of anticipation for some question or another. She always had a good sense for when somebody's not saying something that's on their mind, so I may as well speak up. I was kind of wondering, how to put this. Do you ever regret that you can't see what things look like for yourself? It's just something I've been thinking about. She thinks carefully for a time.
Do you ever regret that you can't hear people whispering on the other side of a room? I can only speak for myself, but the fact that I can't see is the only way I've experienced life. Just as I cannot do something you can't do something that I'm capable of. The fact that the world is made for those who are sighted can be a pain sometimes, but there are many, many people who suffer much more than I because of the way the world is.
That does make sense, but still, it just feels kind of bad to describe something that you can't experience to you. She tilts her head quizzically, as if I just said something that makes very little sense at all.
But I can experience it. You just said yourself you like this area because of the way the surroundings are. I like this area for the very same reason. Thanks to the fact that it's a small rustic town surrounded by trees, it gives some peace and quiet away from the din at school and the bustle, not to mention the smells of the city.
I suppose it would also be much like this home she shared with Akira as well. Her outlook on it seems pretty sensible, and I'm not surprised that she's got a much better handle on her particular condition than I do on mine. Just like how her coming from a location somewhat similar to Yamaku's surroundings let her become more acclimatized in a shorter time, being born blind affected her stance, by her own admission. I should stop being so annoyed with myself over it, but I can't shake the feeling that I've depended on Lily far too much, given the circumstances most have had to deal with in Yamaku. That makes a lot of sense. You're pretty good at explaining, as always. Come to think of it, where is Hanako anyway? She was with us for lunch.
It seems she's busy studying. The exams are far from over, and she said she wants to do better this year than the last.
While I admire her work ethic, she's really trying to give us a lot of room alone recently.
She's that type of person, I think. The kind that puts others' needs above her own at every chance. She's a sweet girl, even though so much has hurt her in the past. I don't know. I feel like it's only now, when she's less close to me than ever, that she's truly finding herself. It was thanks to you that she began to become more confident after all, not me.
I take my hand from hers and gently place it on her head. The important thing is that you are there for her. I can't even imagine what she'd be like without having found someone like you. That much became obvious while you were in Scotland. We're all still friends, so you've just got to have faith in her. I think she'll become a most good person, And that much is thanks to you being there for her when she most needed it, just as you were there for me.
It makes me feel a bit childish when you sound so wise.
Well, I try. Are you doing anything on the weekend by any chance?
Nothing that comes to mind. Why?
Then how about a date on Sunday? It'd be something to do besides exam preparation. Countering my rapidly beating heart, she simply smiles and nods.
That would be lovely.
Well, where do you want to go? Her face suddenly changes to one of disapproval.
You can't do that, Hisao. That's cheating.
Do what?
A gentleman should never ask a lady where to have a date.
That is very true. Lily, I agree with you. Oh. Let's go to a Taco Bell, Lily. Her smile quickly comes back, assuring me that she's far from serious.
Don't worry about it. I'll think about where we could go.
I'll leave it to you then. I promise to decide on the next date, though. With our plans for the weekend made, the rest of the walk down the hill continues in silence. The prospect of that lasting for any length of time, however, is shattered as I catch sight of a familiar figure waiting for us, her hand held high. There's two people that I think it could be. It's either Emmy or Misha. My bets are placed on Misha because I think what I want to see from this game before the Lily route ends is I want to see Lily and Shizune make up. I want to see them be friends again. So if Misha's here, then, maybe that leads to the path where they could start to make up, Ah, that's Akira. Yo!
Thank you, please come again.
The change in temperature as I step outside from the convenience store sends a chill up my spine. It feels like summer is starting to wind down. Looking to my side, the same feeling seems to affect Lily as well, though unlike me, she doesn't manage to hide the fact. Something I didn't realize at first was how physically delicate she is, even compared to the likes of Hanako. If I had to describe her, I'd have to say that she reminds me of a China doll. Akira walks up behind her and gives her a couple of hard pats on the shoulder, much to Lily's consternation. For a moment, she looks as envious of my status as an only child as I am of their close relationship. They talk between themselves for a few moments as I sort out my bags, their voices too low for me to catch, but eventually they break off and we begin the walk back to school. Ah, it feels good to be out of that damned office. You kids don't know how good you have it here. Kids? You two, then. Kids grow up so fast nowadays.
You're not old enough to say that.
I don't know. Being around Hideaki makes me feel damned old. He's so precocious, he reminds me of you when you were younger.
He's a nice boy. It'll be a shame if Shizune comes to have too much of an influence on him.
Akira gives an amused snort at her sister's antipathy. She really doesn't seem to regard it as anything to make a serious fuss about, treating him more like a childhood spat. She looks over to me, apparently only just remembering that I'm here, and gives a small grin as she reaches toward her back pocket. What is it? Just a sec, let me dig it out. After quite some difficulty, she manages to retrieve her black leather wallet from her back pocket, quickly fishing out what looks to be a folded square of paper. With Lily all but unaware of what's happening, Akira unfolds the scrap and hands it to me. Whoa! Okay, that's cute. Look, it's Lily. An old photo of what looks to be a younger Lily and Shizune operating a noodle stall with some other girl in the background. She looks vaguely familiar, but I can't quite pinpoint why. This is a very cute image. I appreciate this image a lot.
What is it, Akira?
I think you know. Lily mulls this over for a few moments before a realization dawns on her.
Akira, you really needn't.
It's fine, isn't it? Besides, it's like the only photo I have of you two since you entered Yamaku where you're not at each other's throats. I look back down to the photo in my hand. It does seem strange to see Lily and Shizune working together so diligently without any sign of animosity. If the photo is of them during Yamaku's festival, that means it must have been taken 1 or 2 years ago. In other words, the time when they were both in the student council together. Who's the girl in the back? She looks kind of familiar. Wait a minute. No, hold on. There is no goddamn way. Is that Misha? Is that Misha? Like, look at the face. You see where I'm coming from, right? Is that Misha? Ha! I knew you wouldn't recognize her. It's Misha before she went and dyed her hair pink. Wow, okay. I thought she just had, like, anime hair. That's Misha? No way. It feels extremely strange to see Misha without her so very distinctive hairstyle. Judging from Akira's tone, she doesn't take favorably to Misha's idea of fashion. I suppose that fact just accentuates how odd the situation looks. To think they were so friendly in the past. I wish I could do something to mend the relationship.
You're being very quiet, Isao.
It just feels kinda strange to see you all so friendly like this. Lily moves to say something, but stops herself. In the end, this isn't a matter for me. It's between Shizune and Lily, and nobody else. Maybe Misha, but I don't know.
Things change, unfortunately.
I hand the photo back to Akira, who sighs as she folds it up and slides it back into her wallet. A little memory, quietly hidden away to be pulled out again sometime later. Yeah, that they do. Initially, I think Akira's reaction to be simply in response to the situation between Lily and Shizune, but she looks oddly glum compared to what I'd expect. Lily's expression is clouded as well. What's wrong? Ah, it's just that I'll be going to Scotland fairly soon. You're leaving for Scotland again? For a long moment, Akira looks surprised. It's an ill-fitting expression for her. After a glance at Lily, she turns back to me as if she'd never done so. Yeah, in a couple of weeks I'll be leaving for Inverness to work at the company's headquarters. It's a pretty big jump in corporate position and it's not a chance it's gonna come again. So Akira's gonna leave Japan on what seems to be a permanent basis. I can't help feeling that my assumption that we could all happily while away our days, having fun in this little isolated world, is coming to an end. It's unsettling. I look at Lily, mildly surprised that she hasn't told me such a thing despite usually being so forthcoming. She continues to walk with her face fixedly pointed ahead. I can't read her expression, nor can I even guess what's on her mind, which is discomforting given how it's usually easy for me to do both. It reminds me of the time when we met at Shanghai, just before what could be called our first date. At the time, all I could do was comfort her without knowing the cause, and now feels no different. As we finally reach the school dormitories once again, there's a somewhat awkward silence. I don't think I'm the only one who feels it. See you tomorrow then, Lily. Bye, Akira.
Good night, Isao.
See ya. And with that, they walk to the female dormitories. Opening the door to the male dormitories, I stop and look back at them just moments before the figures disappear behind the heavy wooden door. That was a strange moment when Akira said she was leaving. While that wasn't the first time when my thoughts regarding my new life have been called into question, it's perhaps the first time I do it quite so profoundly. I still don't know what to make of Akira's reaction, much less of Lily's. The night's chill reminds me to get back to my room before I catch something, my bags falling down on my arms with seemingly redoubled weight. If nothing else, I have a date with her set up for the weekend. I just need to stop overthinking stuff and get on with things as they are. The exams are still ongoing after all, and with the trimester's end and the summer holidays becoming soon, there'll be plenty to keep me busy for a while. As I give a yawn and retreat inside, my thoughts turn to what Lily will decide to set as the location of our weekend rendezvous. Alright, so we got a date set up. And also, that Shizune picture seems to hint toward a Shizune-Lily reunion. Whoa, okay, date starting. Hold on. Hold on. Wait. It's saved. It's saved. Yeah, it's saved. Yeah. I didn't want to do that just yet. Alright, so that's gonna be what we're doing next time, I guess. We're gonna go on the date with Lily. That is very exciting. I really hope that we get to see Shizune and Lily make up throughout this act. That'd be very nice. Anyway, I'll see you next time where we go on this date with Lily. Very excited. Peace.